Never take advice from these 5 people. They'll quietly destroy you. They'll tell you they care. They'll tell you they're protecting you. But the truth, they're protecting themselves from the discomfort your growth will cause them. And if you let them, they will steal your ambition before it's even born. Betrayed not by enemies, but by advice taken from the wrong people. A rising general listens to a cautious friend instead of his gut and loses everything. In life, opinions can be more dangerous than enemies because they shape your actions before you even move. 5 types of people whose opinions will quietly sabotage your life. The coward's counsel. Why fear-based advice destroys bold action. He meant well. He said he was looking out for you. But don't take that risk. It's not the right time. But play it safe. But what he didn't tell you is that he was scared, not for you, for himself. You see, the coward doesn't whisper warnings because he sees danger. He whispers because boldness terrifies him. Because the idea of stepping outside his tiny, controlled world feels like death. And so he cloaks his fear in concern. He calls it a being realistic. He says, I've just seen too much, or trust me, I've been there. But the truth is he's never been anywhere that required courage. Machiavelli understood this game centuries ago. He wrote, "He prince must learn how not to be good." Why? Because always being a good in the eyes of the herd means never moving beyond them. And that's exactly what the coward wants. A world where no one moves beyond him. Where everyone stays small, so he never has to face his shrinking soul. Look at the world around you. How many men never started their business, their mission, their transformation, because someone said, it's risky, it's not practical. You're not that type of person, and they listened. They confused fear with wisdom. They mistook safety for strategy. And now they live a quiet life of regret, calling it a being humble. But here's what psychology tells us. Fear is socially contagious. Your brain has mirror neurons that absorb the emotions of those around you. So when you spend your time with cowards, doubters, overthinkers, you don't just hear their fears, you start living them. That's how fear-based advice becomes a virus. It sounds gentle, but it grows slowly, silently, until it suffocates your instinct, and suddenly, your courage doesn't feel like courage anymore. It feels like rebellion, like danger, like something shameful, but it's not. It's your instinct trying to survive in a room full of ghosts. Because the truth is simple, the coward never sees your vision. He only sees his limits projected onto your future. So stop asking for permission from people who've never done anything worth granting permission for. Their fear isn't your prophecy, and their hesitation isn't your blueprint. Your path requires blood, risk, sharp edges, the kind of choices that make the coward flinch. So let him flinch. Second comes the stingy thinker, how scarcity mentality limits your growth. He wears the mask of a prudence. They save your energy. Don't spend too much. Play it safe. You never know. But behind those polite warnings isn't wisdom, it's fear. Because the stingy thinker doesn't just fear losing money. He fears expansion itself. He fears the unknown. He fears anything that demands belief in more growth, more risk, more responsibility. To him, every investment feels like a threat. Every new move feels like betrayal. Not because it's irrational, but because it defies the only world he understands, limitation. Machiavelli didn't write for these men. He wrote for those who understood that power multiplies only when you bet on yourself. He said, a fortune favors the bold, not the stingy, not scared. Not the man who waits for the perfect time, while time leaves him behind. The stingy thinker will never tell you to invest in your skills, your vision, or your transformation. He'll say, is it worth it? Or shouldn't you wait a bit longer? Don't waste your money. But what he's saying is, I'm afraid to grow, and I need you to be too, because if you expand, it forces him to face his stagnation. If you succeed, it reflects his refusal to try. If you rise, it shatters his comfort psychologically. It's called the scarcity trap. When the brain becomes addicted to the fear of loss, it stops seeing possibilities. It only considers preservation. So what kind of advice do these people give? They tell you to avoid risks, to think small, to build slowly, not strategically, but fearfully. They talk about saving pennies while wasting decades. And here's the irony. Most people who refuse to invest in themselves pay the highest cost of all, not in money, but in missed time, lost identity, and unrealized potential. Because when you shrink your life to fit someone else's fear, you inherit their ceiling. Their doubts become your doctrine. Their limits become your life. But the strategist, he thinks in leverage. He sees investment as power. He doesn't hoard resources. He deploys them. He asks, what will this give me back? Not a what will this take away? So ask yourself, are you building a future or protecting a prison? Because listening to the Stingy Thinker will keep you safe, but you'll die in the same place you started. And the world will never know what you could have been if you had just expanded. Does this advice expand my capacity or shrink it? Third comes the Greedy Manipulator, advice that benefits them, not you. They speak with a smile. They say they care. They act like they want what's best for you. But pay close attention, because behind their advice, it is a motive. Greedy manipulators don't offer insight. They offer influence, not to empower you, but to steer you toward what keeps them in control. This is not guidance. It's a covert negotiation. They flatter you. They praise your potential. They say, you're too talented to walk away. When what they really mean is, you're too valuable to me. Don't ruin that. And when you hesitate, they guilt you. They say, I thought we were in this together. I've done so much for you. You're being selfish. It's not honesty. It's a psychological trap. Machiavelli warned us centuries ago, men are driven by interest more than loyalty. Loyalty is the mask. Interest is the engine. The greedy manipulator is always calculating. They study what you want, so they can offer it. But there's always a string attached, a favor owed, a door that only opens if you don't look too closely at the lock. This is called the covert contract, an unspoken agreement where you do what they want, and they pretend it was your choice. They advise you to stay small, so you stay manageable. They suggest caution, so you don't outgrow them. They say wait, while they move ahead without you. You think it's friendship. You think it's mentorship, but it's a chess game, and you're the piece they're moving. Look around the business partner who always talks about collaboration, but pockets all the credit. The relationship where your sacrifices are expected, but never returned. The fake mentor who encourages you to stay under their wing because your wings threaten theirs. Here's the law. If someone benefits from your confusion, they'll never give you clarity. They'll drown you in compliments, distract you with emotional language, make you believe their suggestions are love when they're just leverage. But the strategist knows real advice comes from those who gain nothing by giving it. The rest, they're just selling you an illusion while buying control. So when someone speaks into your life, ask one question. Who profits if I listen? Because if the answer isn't to me, you're being used. Then comes the riskless conformer. Why can't you build anything in a comfort zone? There's a certain type of person you've met many times in your life. They never fail because they never try. They never lose because they never play. They live in a prison called comfort, and they want you to move in. These are the people who call you arkless for leaping. Who tells you to play it safe? Who whispers that stability is more important than ambition? But don't confuse their fear for wisdom. Because people who've never taken a risk, it will always teach you how to survive, never how to conquer. They project their limits onto your potential. Because your courage confronts their cowardice, your drive threatens their apathy. Your vision reminds them of the life they never had the strength to pursue. Machiavelli didn't respect these types. He wrote in The Prince, a fortune is a woman, and if you wish to master her, you must strike and beat her down. It doesn't live in predictability. It's seized violently, decisively, by those who are willing to embrace uncertainty. The conformer fears risk because they fear responsibility. If they fail, they'll have no one to blame, so they choose a quiet life, a safe path, a coffin with a couch in it, and they'll do everything to pull you in. You don't want to regret this. Think of your reputation. Just be grateful for what you have. But here's the reality. Gratitude without growth becomes sedation, and safety without struggle becomes slavery. These people have never built something from scratch, never stood alone in the storm, never faced the judgment of the crowd and still walked forward. So why are you taking their advice on how to live? In psychology, it's called learned helplessness, a condition where failure is feared so deeply that the person stops trying altogether. But here's the danger. Helplessness is contagious. If you surround yourself with people who hate risk, you'll start to fear your potential. The strategist sees this trap. He knows you can't build anything powerful in a comfort zone. You can't reshape the world if you're afraid to be uncomfortable in it. So test every voice that speaks into your life. Have they ever risked anything real? Because if the answer is no, then their advice will bury your ambition in a grave of politeness and fear. Have they risked anything real? Next, the unaccomplished critic. Loud opinions, no real experience. There's a rule no one tells you. The loudest voices often come from the cheapest seats, and the harshest critics, they're almost always the least accomplished. You start building something, they mock it. You speak your vision, they roll their eyes. You aim higher, they pull you back down. But here's the part they never reveal. They're not angry at your ambition. They're ashamed of their passivity because your movement exposes their stagnation. Your courage threatens their excuses. Your clarity reminds them of everything they never dared to pursue. Machiavelli knew this psychology well. He said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you are," meaning people don't judge you based on your truth. They judge you based on their limitations. And so they project, not out of malice, but out of insecurity. Psychologists call it ego defense. When someone hasn't achieved much, their ego still demands significance. So instead of building something worthy, they tear down what others create. It's easier to criticize than to construct. Easier to mock than to master. Easier to doubt than to do. These people are experts in nothing, but they speak like authorities on everything. You'll hear it. Oh, that'll never work. Oh, don't be stupid. This isn't realistic. You're just lucky. Who do you think you are? Here's the truth. They've never dared to lose. So they'll never understand what it means to win. Real builders don't talk like that. Real leaders, they ask questions. They offer perspective, not mockery. They share wisdom, not condescension. Because anyone who has walked the path knows how brutal it is. They don't throw stones, they hand you armor. So the next time someone criticizes you, ask one question. Have they ever built what I'm building? If not, their opinion is entertainment, not information. This is why Machiavellian strategy demands discernment. You don't silence critics, you filter them. Because if you let unaccomplished minds steer your journey, you'll end up exactly where they are. Stuck, bitter, insignificant. And they'll say, "I told you so." Not because they were right, but because they needed you to fail, to justify never trying. So listen closely, but not equally. Let results guide your counsel. Let reality sort your advisors. Because in the end, it's not about who talks the most. It's about who's done the most. And those people, they rarely shout, they move and dominate. Your sovereign mind? Stop taking permission. You were not born to ask for permission. You were born to take responsibility for your mind. And the world, full of noise, fear, and projections, will try to hijack that mind every day. They'll offer you opinions dressed as truth. Warnings dressed as wisdom, doubt disguised as a love. But look closer. Most people don't speak from vision. They speak from scars, from trauma they never healed, from dreams they never pursued, from fears they still obey. And if you don't filter that, you inherit it. Machiavelli didn't say a be ruthless for theatrics. He said it because sovereignty has a cost. And part of that cost is choosing your counsel carefully. He understood that the wrong opinion, offered at the right time, can sabotage an empire before it's even built. Not through war, but through hesitation, through the slow erosion of self-belief. You must learn to curate your circle like a strategist. Take advice from men who've bled for their beliefs, not those who hide behind comfort. From warriors, not worriers. From architects, not critics. From those who failed and risen, not those who've never dared. Because when you let the wrong voice shape your decisions, you live their life, not yours. So stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop waiting for a green light. Your path doesn't require validation. It requires clarity. And that clarity can only come when you build the inner fortress, where your instincts are sharpened, your vision is guarded, and your purpose is sovereign. The crown doesn't come from applause. It comes from strategy. And in this war of influence, the man who masters his mind rules the battlefield.